My name is Ahmed. I never thought my life would turn into a story full of pain, confusion, and unanswered questions. But here I am, sitting alone in my small apartment, staring at the empty space where she used to be, my ex-wife, Sara. People say that when someone dies, you find peace eventually. But for me, her death was just the beginning of a long, dark journey. Sara and I met many years ago. We were young and full of dreams. At first, everything was perfect. We laughed, talked about our future, and planned a life together. I loved her deeply, and I thought she loved me too. We got married in a small ceremony with our families. Life seemed bright and full of hope. But slowly, things changed. At first, it was little things. She started spending more time on her phone, going out late, and sometimes avoiding my calls. I thought it was just stress from work. But soon, those little things turned into big problems. We argued a lot. Sometimes she would say things that hurt me, and I didn't understand why. Sara became distant. She stopped sharing her feelings and kept secrets. I felt like I was losing her, but I didn't know how to stop it. I tried to talk to her, to fix what was broken, but she always said she was fine and didn't want to talk about it. One day, everything changed forever. I got a phone call that no one wants to receive. Sara had died. The news came like a storm. It was sudden and shocking. I couldn't believe it. How could someone I loved with all my heart be gone? The doctors said it was a car accident, a tragic, unexpected accident. The days after her death were the hardest of my life. I felt empty and lost. Family and friends came to support me, but their words couldn't fill the hole in my heart. We had a funeral, and I stood there, saying goodbye to the woman I thought I knew. People cried, hugged me, and told me to be strong. But inside, I was breaking. As time passed, I tried to move on. I kept going to work and pretending everything was normal. But deep down, something didn't feel right. There were small things that didn't add up. Some of her belongings were untouched, as if she left in a hurry. Her phone was missing, and no one seemed to have a clear answer about the accident. I started remembering moments that seemed strange now. The way she looked scared sometimes, the secret calls she made, and how she never told me everything. A feeling grew inside me. Maybe Sara's death was not what it seemed. I wanted to believe she was gone, but my heart whispered a different story. I couldn't let go of the hope that she might still be alive somewhere, hiding, running from something. This is my story. The story of a man who lost the love of his life, but found a secret that would change everything. The story of how I discovered the truth behind Sara's death, and why I saw her on the news, alive and unbroken. Sara and I met in college. She was smart, kind, and full of life. I remember the first time I saw her. She was sitting under a big tree, reading a book, completely lost in her world. I wanted to talk to her, but I was too shy. After a few weeks, we finally started talking and became friends. Our friendship soon turned into love, and before we knew it, we were inseparable. We got married when we were both 25. It was a small wedding, just family and close friends. Life was good in the beginning. We had dreams of traveling the world, starting a family, and growing old together. Sara was full of hope and energy, always encouraging me to do better. For a while, everything went as planned. We bought a small house and worked hard to build a stable life. But as the years passed, things started to change. Sara's smile faded slowly, replaced by tired eyes and long silences. I tried to understand what was wrong, but she never told me. She began to act differently. She would come home late from work, saying she had extra meetings or projects. Sometimes she looked worried, as if carrying a heavy secret. When I asked her about it, she would just say, "Don't worry, everything is fine." I remember one night, about 2 years before she died, she received a phone call and quickly went to another room to talk. I overheard bits of the conversation, words like danger, leave, and not safe. My heart sank, but when I confronted her later, she brushed it off, saying it was nothing important. Our arguments became more frequent. I felt helpless and confused. She was shutting me out, and I didn't know how to bring her back. One time, she even told me she felt trapped, like there was no way out of her life. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. Sarah's behavior became more secretive. She hid her phone, deleted messages, and avoided my questions. Sometimes, she would disappear for hours without telling me where she was. It broke my trust, but I still loved her and hoped she would come back to me. We tried counseling once, but she left after the first session. She said it wouldn't help and that she was tired of pretending. I felt lost and alone. I asked her friends if they noticed anything strange. Some said Sarah was worried about something, but no one knew what. Others said she seemed scared but didn't want to talk about it. At home, the atmosphere changed. The house felt cold and empty, even when she was there. We stopped sharing meals, stopped laughing together. I miss the Sarah I once knew, but she seemed like a stranger. Despite everything, I never gave up on her. I told myself that one day she would open up and we could fix our broken life. But deep down, I was afraid that something worse was coming. Then came the day of the accident. I had no idea what she was going through or why she was so distant. I only knew that the woman I loved was gone, suddenly, tragically, and without warning. Looking back now, I realized there were signs I missed. Signs that Sarah was trying to escape something dangerous. Something she never wanted me to see. As I write this, I still wonder, what was she running from? Why did she hide the truth? And could I have saved her if I had only understood? This story is not just about loss. It's about secrets, fear, and the struggle to find the truth behind the mask people wear. The day I heard about Sarah's death is a day I will never forget. It started like any other morning. I woke up early and was getting ready for work. My phone rang suddenly. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, the voice on the other end was calm but serious. Mr. Ahmed, this is Officer Khan from the city police. We regret to inform you that your wife, Sara, was involved in a car accident last night. She passed away at the scene. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like the world stopped spinning. My hands trembled and I dropped the phone. The words didn't make sense. Sara dead? It couldn't be true. I called my family immediately. My parents came rushing over, and my heart ached as I told them the terrible news. The next hours passed in a blur. I was in shock. Friends and relatives started calling, offering their condolences. Everyone was sad, but no one could say the right words to heal my broken heart. The police said Sarah's car had collided with a truck on a rainy road. They said she lost control, and the accident was fatal. There was no sign of other passengers or witnesses. It was a tragic accident, they said, sudden and unexpected. That evening, I went to the hospital to see her. I wanted to say goodbye, to see her one last time. But when I arrived, all I saw was a covered body, and the cold, sterile room reminded me of how final death can be. The funeral was held a few days later. I stood by her coffin, surrounded by people who loved her. I listened to prayers and speeches, but all I could think about was the emptiness inside me. I remembered the Sara who smiled at me every morning, the woman who held my hand during hard times. Now she was gone, and I was left with questions I couldn't answer. But even in the middle of my grief, something didn't feel right. It started with small things that I noticed but didn't want to believe. For example, Sarah's phone was never found. The police told me they searched her car thoroughly, but no phone was there. I found this strange because she always kept her phone with her. She was never without it. Also, some of her belongings at home, her favorite scarf, her jewelry, were untouched, as if she had planned to come back. Usually, when someone dies suddenly, their things are scattered or taken by relatives. But Sarah's things were exactly where she left them. A few neighbors said they heard strange noises near her house the night of the accident. Some said they saw a car speeding away from the area. No one reported this to the police, but I wondered if it was connected. I began to ask questions. The police report was brief and lacked details. There were no witnesses, no clear cause for the accident besides bad weather. I tried to remember every moment with Sara before that day. Was she acting differently? Was she afraid? I recalled the secret phone call I overheard, and the time she seemed scared. What was she running from? My doubts grew stronger. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I decided to investigate quietly. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved was gone forever. Not like this. I started by talking to her friends and family. Some were surprised by the news, but none knew much about what she was going through. A few said Sara had mentioned problems, but never said what kind. I also hired a private investigator. I needed someone to look deeper into the accident and Sara's life before that day. The investigator found some unusual facts. First, Sara had been in contact with someone unknown. Phone records showed calls to a number registered in another city. When questioned, no one knew who this person was. Second, there was no clear evidence of the accident location matching the police report. The place where Sara's car was found seemed odd, as if the accident scene had been staged. Third, and most shocking, the investigator found out that Sara had been planning to leave for weeks. She had booked a one-way ticket to another country, but the ticket was never used. All of this made me more confused and scared. Was Sara alive? Did she fake her death? If so, why? And where was she hiding? My family thought I was losing my mind. They told me to stop digging and try to move on. But how could I? The questions haunted me every night. I started watching the news more carefully, hoping for any clue about her. I searched social media, looking for any sign or message from her. But there was nothing. One night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at the photos of us on the wall. I whispered her name, hoping she could hear me wherever she was. Why did you leave me, Sara? Were you hiding? Little did I know. The answer was closer than I thought, waiting for me to find on a screen, in a place I never expected. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. I kept searching for answers, but every lead seemed to end in a dead end. My friends told me to accept Sara was gone and move on, but I couldn't. A small voice inside me kept whispering that the truth was somewhere out there, waiting to be found. One evening, I was sitting in my living room, feeling tired and hopeless. The TV was on, playing the evening news. I wasn't really paying attention until the reporter said something that caught my ear. Breaking news: authorities have arrested a woman suspected of involvement in a major fraud case. The suspect, living under an assumed name, was found in a small town about 200 miles away from here. I turned up the volume. The screen showed a grainy photo of the woman in question. My heart stopped. I stared at the face on the screen. She looked exactly like Sara. Same eyes, same nose, same smile that I could never forget. Could it be her? It had to be her. My mind raced with questions. Why was she involved in this? Why was she hiding under a different name? And most importantly, why did she fake her death? I grabbed my phone and started searching for more information. The news channel posted the story online, and I read every detail I could find. According to the report, the woman, who was now going by the name Lena, was accused of running a complicated financial scam. She had been on the run from the law for months, changing locations and identities. No one knew her real past, but investigators were closing in. The news said she was arrested peacefully and was cooperating with the police. There was a short interview clip where she spoke quietly, refusing to answer many questions. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was Sara really involved in a crime? Or was she trying to protect herself from something worse? I needed to know the truth. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was full of memories of Sara, the good times and the bad. I thought about all the signs I had missed. Maybe she wasn't running from the police. Maybe she was running from something or someone more dangerous. I called the private investigator I had hired. I told him about the news story and asked if he could confirm whether Lena was really Sara. The next day, he called me back. Yes, Ahmed, the woman arrested is Sara. We confirmed it through her fingerprints and some old photos. She is alive. Hearing that sentence was like a punch to my chest. Alive. After all this time, she was alive. But why? And why hide like this? The investigator told me more. He said Sara had been living in hiding for months, changing her name and identity. She was scared, afraid of someone or something that no one else knew about. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Why didn't she trust me enough to tell me? Why did she disappear without a word? That same day, I traveled to the small town where she was being held. I wanted to see her, to hear her story from her own lips. At the police station, I waited anxiously. When they brought her in, I hardly recognized her. She looked tired and scared, but the moment our eyes met, I knew it was her. I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. She looked away, afraid to meet me. Finally, she whispered, "Ahmed, I'm sorry." Her apology was simple but full of pain. She told me she had no choice but to fake her death. There were people after her, people who wanted to hurt her and me. She didn't want to drag me into her nightmare. She explained that the scam she was accused of was part of a bigger plan to escape those who were threatening her life. She took risks to protect herself and the people she loved. I listened, trying to understand. It was hard to believe that the woman I thought I knew had been living a double life, hiding from dangers I never saw. As she spoke, tears filled my eyes. I realized how much pain she must have been carrying alone. That night, I left the police station with a heavy heart, but also with hope. Maybe now we could finally start to heal and find the truth together. The story was far from over, but at least now, the mystery of Sara's death was solved. She was alive, and so was our chance to face the past. After seeing Sara at the police station, I knew I couldn't just walk away. I needed answers, the full truth. I wanted to understand why she had disappeared, why she faked her death, and what danger she was running from. A few days after her arrest, I asked the police if I could meet her again. This time, I was determined to have a real conversation. When she agreed, my heart was pounding. We met in a small, quiet room at the station. Sara looked nervous but calmer than before. She didn't say much at first. I waited, not wanting to pressure her. Finally, I spoke. "Sara, I need to know everything. Why did you do this? Why did you leave me and our life behind?" She took a deep breath and began slowly. "Ahmed, I never wanted to hurt you, but I had no choice. There were people after me, people dangerous enough to kill. I was trapped, and I thought if I disappeared, they would stop." I listened carefully as she told me her story. A few months before the accident, Sara had discovered that some powerful people were involved in illegal activities. She had stumbled upon evidence that could ruin them. When they found out she knew too much, they threatened her. She was scared for her life, and for mine. She said she tried to tell me, but every time she opened her mouth, fear stopped her. She didn't want to put me in danger. So she planned to escape quietly. Faking her death was the only way she saw to keep us safe. She arranged the car accident to look real. It was risky, but it was the only plan she had. She went into hiding, changing her name and location. But even then, the threats followed her. The scam charges she faced were connected, part of the plan to confuse her enemies and protect her identity. Hearing all this, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, relief, sadness, and guilt. I was angry that she didn't trust me enough to share the truth. I was relieved she was alive. I was sad for all the pain she suffered alone. And I felt guilty because I had no idea what she was going through. I asked her, "Why didn't you come to me?" We promised to face everything together. She looked down and whispered, "I was scared. Ahmed, I didn't want you to get hurt. I thought I could protect you better if I stayed away." We sat in silence for a few moments. I realized how much courage it must have taken for her to finally tell me. Then I asked the hardest question. "What now? What do you want from me?" Sara looked up and said, "I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if I can go back to the life we had. But I want you to know the truth. And if you can forgive me, maybe we can find a way to move forward, even if it's apart." I nodded slowly. I wasn't sure what the future held. But I knew one thing for sure. I wanted to understand her, to support her. Over the next few weeks, we talked more. Sara explained the dangers she faced and how she was working with the police to bring those responsible to justice. I helped her through the difficult moments, and she opened up about her fears and hopes. It wasn't easy, but it was healing. We decided to take things one step at a time. Whether we stay together or went our separate ways, we promised to be honest with each other from now on. The truth had come out of the shadows, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a small spark of hope. Life after everything felt strange, like waking up from a long, dark dream. Sara and I were no longer the same people who had promised forever years ago, but the truth had given us something precious. a chance to start again in some way. Sara faced the charges against her with courage because she had cooperated with the police and helped expose the dangerous people who had threatened her. Her sentence was lighter than expected. The nightmare that followed her for so long finally began to fade. For me, it was a time to heal. I spent many nights reflecting on what had happened, the pain, the secrets, and the love that never really disappeared. I realized that life is not perfect, and sometimes the people we love carry burdens we cannot see. Sara and I decided to stay apart for now. We needed space to rebuild ourselves and find peace. But we also promised to stay in touch, to support each other from a distance. I learned a lot from this experience. I learned about trust, forgiveness, and the strength it takes to face the unknown. Most of all, I learned that even when things fall apart, there is always hope for healing. Sometimes, the hardest journeys lead us to the greatest discoveries about ourselves and those we love. As I write this now, I am filled with gratitude. Grateful that Sara is alive, grateful for truth, and grateful for the chance to move forward. Life will never be the same, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Because now we have a story of survival, courage, and the power of truth. And that story is just beginning.